what you see is, if let's say that the insurer wants to maintain his portfolio loss ratio at 65%, 65% plus the IID limit of, let's say 32% is a combined of 97, which is, by global standards, a reasonable combined to run a profitable book at. Now, if the pricing action were not taken at all, and if we assume that medical trend is running at 10%, you can see, and if the starting point for the insurance company is 60%, you can actually see that if left without any pricing action, the portfolio actually worsens to about 85, 88% over a 5-year time frame. So that's point number one. And really what I want to illustrate through the other two lines is the sensitivity of when you undertake the pricing action. If you undertook the pricing action year 0, looking ahead 3 years, and let's say 3 years is the price revision cycle that you're interested in, then you're all right and you're able to manage your portfolio to the 65% target that the company, let's say, needs. But instead of year 0, if you implemented that in year 1, you're actually going to overshoot the financial target of the company by year 2 by quite a margin. So that's, the point I want to make here is, look, just as we talk about general inflation, medical trend is real. And even if insurers have loss ratios that appear to be attractive, timely pricing action is quite critical to our job as portfolio managers. Another thing which is of big, I would say very big importance to our country, and I go back to a book written way back in 1972 by Victor Fuchs, and he asked this question, who will pay for healthcare? On the chart on your left, you can see that in most advanced countries, they spend about 8% of GDP on healthcare. In the United States, that number is more than twice at 17%. In India, we spend about 4% of GDP on healthcare. Government is probably about 1% of that. Now, the reality is that with the Prime Minister, Prime Minister's ambition of 5 trillion as economy by 2025, with rising incomes, with a burgeoning middle class, in time we will get to 7-8% of GDP on healthcare, and of course with the rising burden of disease. So in time we will start to spend 7-8% of GDP on healthcare. I think this is a reality that will play out sooner than later. Now this poses very important questions for us as a society and as an industry. Because this increasing spend, I think we need to, as a society, recognize that we need to exercise choices in terms of how this money is spent. On your right is a table which illustrates, and when we talk about medical advancement, what is the difference in price between a robotic surgery and a laparoscopic procedure, and that difference is actually very stark. Now, for that particular individual, the robotic surgery may indeed result in better health outcomes. But when you have a third-party payer system or when you have public financing, I think as a society we need to ask some hard questions in terms of, hey, is a rupee better spent in a particular individual's health outcome, or is it better spent in building toilets or public health facilities, or in making sure that more and more people have access to quality health care as opposed to a small set having access to ultra-modern, more sophisticated healthcare. So I think this is a very important societal choice that we will need to make as a country, and this is at a micro level a choice that we get hit with as insurers reasonably frequently, especially as medical technology advances, because for that particular individual, when exercising that choice, it's almost always that you want the right thing and the best quality care. But the reality is that when a claim is paid, it is paid out of pooled money, and then it may not be the best choice for all of the population that has pooled in the money. So I think this is again something that the young and bright students of NIA could sort of discuss and debate and maybe help the country shape its opinion on how do we make some of these choices. And lastly, and I think one of the speakers earlier in the day referred to the fact that, look, India is unique. And indeed, we are unique. There is no country except perhaps China which is comparable in terms of how our healthcare and health financing system is evolving. And perhaps the most important structural decision which I feel we need to make today is to solve this incentive problem between payers and providers. The reality is that for most part, the way we pay providers today in India is more or less mirroring what happens, let me say, in the United States. Any economic actor responds to incentives. And today, the more you treat, the more you get paid. And that system in time will not become sustainable. So I think as an industry, how do we align incentives that payments between financiers of care and people who deliver care are done in a way which is patient-centric, but also better align incentives between who's paying for the money, who's getting the money, what are the treatments being performed in the best interest of the consumer. I think this is a very, very important structural question that needs to be addressed by industry collaboration today, because I fear that if we did not address this today, we are going down a path which is actually quite unsustainable in times to come. So thank you. Hopefully there is some food for thought for all of the students sitting in the audience, and I'd be delighted if some of these actually became questions that were delved into a little more deeply by the students here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The last topic for this session is getting ready for the digital world, which will be presented by Mr. Nilesh Garg. Before beginning, I take great pleasure in introducing Mr. Garg. Sir is the Managing Director and CEO of Tata AIG General Insurance Company Limited. Having over 24 years of rich experience in the financial sector, Sir has worked with companies like ICICI Limited, Citigroup, and ICICI Lombard General Insurance. Sir is an active member of the CII National Committee in Insurance and also sits on the governing bodies of many reputed organizations like Insurance Information Bureau and NSDC. I would request Sir to commence.
Mr. Srinivasan, Director NIA, my Sandeep, Bhargav, Krishnan, my esteemed panel, seniors, colleagues and friends of the insurance industry, and the young students of NIA, good afternoon and thank you for inviting me to be part of this. There's lots been, it's been a very, very fascinating morning. Lots been said about how the world is changing. There's innovation, disruption, technology, the customers thinking of new things. So I think the topic has been very well chosen, strategic perspective on building a resilient industry. I just wanted to, a lot of themes, and topics have been spoken about. One of the things, comments, which I wanted to make, which is not related to so much about anything, but yet related to everything, is that I believe, that the fundamental thing which we need to focus on is mindsets. And when we are talking about how do we build a resilient industry, basically we will be able to build a resilient industry only if we are able to change with the changing needs of the customers. And I think, Krishnan spoke about it. First of all, the mindsets of the customers are changing. We all know 50% of the population of India is below 25. When we look at 2025, 2030, these young minds, these people are going to become, if not already, they are going to become the bulk of the purchasing. They are going to become the customers of India. And what all of us have realized, either, looking at our kids or, the people sitting in the back benches, on their own behavior. I think the pattern of, the mindset of a lot of these young consumers is very different. what we call today, nobody, and I'm here making an intelligent guess, I think the pride which used to be associated about 25 years back with owning a home or owning a car or owning a two-wheeler, I don't think, is there anymore. Nobody is very keen on purchasing an asset. An asset is looked more as a liability than an asset. Everybody is very impatient. So when you are wanting, the insurance agent is going to come visit me on Friday and then fill up a form and then the answer will come on 2 weeks later. I don't think, this generation, so if 6 o'clock, 6 p.m., you felt a need, that I want this product, then you order it 6:01 and, then, you get the delivery next day morning or, whatever. So it's a services economy, consumption in bytes, so again, India probably changed, when I think some company introduced the shampoo in a 1 rupee, sachet, or the telecom chota recharge of 10 rupees or 1 rupees. I think most of the people now, again, I'm making intelligent guess, most of the people below 25 are very happy with the prepaid connections, and most of the people above 50, I would say, or above 40 are happy with postpaid connections. I think that is, what we need to understand, how the mindsets of today's customers, young customers are consuming products, vis-a-vis subscribing to services rather than, ownership of products. And, that kind of gives us a lot of clues in terms of, how the insurance industry is going to change. Equally, if not bigger, the challenge is also the mindsets of the manufacturers. And, so there have been some, Bhargav spoke about some great examples. If I'm not, wrong, I think Oscar itself might already be valued at about $4 billion. $4 billion, that's a 30,000 crore company, which is started by some techies, maybe I think, just about 3 or 4 years back. So, to put it in perspective, a lot of the Indian insurance companies, don't have, that kind of value. So, when I'm talking about mindsets, I think, of a traditional mindset, and I'm talking about myself, I'm confessing, most of us, most of the times, we start thinking that change, a SpaceX or a NASA, it's happening somewhere in Silicon Valley and it's happening sometime far away. But all the examples which Bhargav said, all of those are existing companies which are running very viable models, or when we spoke about Pingan or Zongan, those are companies which are existing right now and doing very well in this ecosystem. So I think, and again, if we look back, when we look back at some of these other examples of, famous examples of Kodak or certain other companies, I'm sure they had very, very bright people, super bright, probably the best. But probably when you get complacent and think that we are already doing very well, see, the interesting, the fascinating part about a lot of this change is there is a certain gestation period. When you are trying to destroy, there was a word, disruption, which was used. Disruptive innovation is a word, which was coined, about 15 years back. Very interesting. Disruptive innovation, fundamentally also means, that you have to destroy parts of your existing organization to create something new. But when you destroy something and create something new, the results of that are going to come after 3 years or, maybe 36 months, maybe even longer than that, maybe 60 months. Do as management teams, if you're having management teams, if you're having tenures of, limited tenures, if you're working for this quarter, this year numbers, or whatever, do we have the vision or the mindset, to make changes and investments, which results are going to come after 5 years or after 10 years? And which is where I think the intelligence is all there in the room. I think, so to my mind, I just wanted to, make this fundamental point. It's very important to understand the mindset of the customer. It's very important to change our own mindsets. Maybe what was working for the last, of course, there's a great amount of respect for organizations, have been for 100 years. But maybe, if the customer is changing, what has worked for the last 10 years or 25 years might not work for the next 25 years. And that's something, I think, which is the, I think the foundation of this entire debate, that how quickly can we change our own mindsets and understand the mindsets of the, new age customer. And which is what I'm going to talk a little bit about. I'm not going to, not going to, use any of the large, big strategies, which Sandeep spoke about in terms of, E&Y. But I mean, there has been, we all know these numbers. There is a very, very strong, you know, internet community which is developing in India. But I think the difference, which is happening is, that instead of just internet users, now I think more and more customers are becoming comfortable transacting on the internet. And that's something, which the change there is, whether the search words, whether it's the number of internet users, I think that change is, happening very fast, and we need to be cognizant of that change. So this is, this is a little busy slide, but the point, which I'm trying to make here is, there is a lot of, the industry is primed for digital disruption. And today, there are the disruptors on one side, so whether the disruption is going to come from Amazon, Google, the insurtechs, the fintechs, there's a lot of people who are going to, create the disruption. On the other side, I think, there's a lot of also enablers which have happened. Today, India itself, the kind of data ecosystem, that India has, the kind of payment ecosystem which India has, today was unimaginable 10 years back. And, the regulation is also kind of, trying to make changes or moving in pace. There is, we were talking about sandbox in the morning. But I think, equally exciting is, today having these databases, where, you can maybe real time, check the credit score of a person. You should be able to, I'm hoping at some point in time in the future, be able to check real time the risk score of a person. What is the propensity of, or to identify a fraud. I think these are going to be, some of the very fundamental changes. So these are all the enablers which are happening in terms of the ecosystem players, etc. So I think, again, this, we can look at it as a threat, or we can look at it as an opportunity. I would say, for all of us, there is a huge business opportunity, whether it's in terms of digitizing the existing channels. So I think, a lot of times, we talk about an either-or approach, that either the traditional channel has to die, the agents have to die, or vis-a-vis digital. I also think, I don't think it has to be that way. And, there is this company called Progressive, in the US, which is where your expense ratio is similar between both digital channel and the agency channel. So can you, use all the technologies, all the seamlessness of the process, and hence expense reduction for your traditional channel, and enable them to increase the conversion rate and reduce the cost? So I think, that's a, big opportunity which is there. Then of course the direct to consumer, which we all know, and the ecosystem plays. So today there are so many ecosystems, not in US, not in Germany, not in China, but in India, where people are having, 1 crore, 2 crores, 5 crores, 10 crores, interactions with customers in a very, very short time frame. There was, there was a Kerala floods, when it happened, so one of the entities, started raising, source funding, crowdsourcing for Kerala funds, and, just ticket size of 10 rupees, they were able to, in just 1 week's time, be able to, collect more money for Kerala floods, which a lot of state governments, provided. That's the power of, I think, some of these platforms, and, it's already there in India, and, we need to open our imagination into how can we plug into this, and, what can we do? So I think a little bit, few comments on, so what do we do? And I'm talking about the insurance industry, and for me, there are, I think, 3 very key enablers, to simplify things, so one is tech, of course. I mean, that's the starting point of all of this. Second is org structure / talent, and which is where I think, the NIA aspect, becomes very important. And third is, the products and ecosystems. I think, some part of that has been spoken about. On the, if I talk about the talent part, which is a very critical aspect, the only thing, I'm very happy, that NIA is talking about a ERM program. The only other thing, which, sir, I would put a request is, I think it's also becoming very important today to balance the traditional domain skills with the new age skills. And when I say new age skills, might not have anything to do with insurance, but to bring a powerful solution to the customer, it's required. What I mean by that is, we need data architects, we need data engineers, we need data scientists. So can we also look at something, wherein we are able to equip our students, with some good data modeling techniques to understand read data. That's going to be very important input, going forward. Similarly, a lot of the, what does it take, to develop some, infuse, these students while, they are getting a lot of domain knowledge, with certain tech knowledge. Tech knowledge, when I say, it's knowledge about, building a UI, UX, or maybe coding at a basic level. So I think that's again, so there is, somebody was telling me yesterday, a financial engineering is becoming a very important aspect. I think, so these skill sets are also going to be equally important for us to, so one is, we get these guys, but I think the most powerful combination will be if we get somebody who understands, a fire risk or, the rating equation of a motor vehicle. Along with that, he or she also understands, a little bit about data modeling or, UI, UX. I think that combination is going to become very unique in going forward. And somebody who's at the cusp of both of these, those are the resources which will be the most valuable, going forward. On the tech, basically, a lot of, so there is clearly insurtechs, new age digital companies, which don't have legacy. This message is, I think more for all of the traditional, companies, how do we, change and destroy parts of our organization, to become much more agile, so that our technology architectures, instead of slowing us down, so what is our readiness, to deliver a product in 1 week's time, or even a 1 month's time, vis-a-vis, a 1 year time? Those are the hard questions, I think some of us, will need to ask ourselves, vis-a-vis our legacy systems, our processes, to be made lean and digitized, real-time underwriting and claim processing. Again, that's happening already. So it's not something, which is a real-time claim processing is being discussed at a conference, which is a future forward-looking conference, but those are products, which a lot of companies and a lot of countries, including India, are, trying to, are already, offering. And that's, as somebody said, the customer has to be the center of this conversation. And if the customer wants that, that's the right answer. It doesn't matter, what the underwriter or the insurance company, thinks. Big data and analytics, again, lots been spoken about. And the other thing is, again, the mindset of what do we do with it, build versus buy? How much is insourced and how much is outsourced? So do we look at a lot of the insurtechs as competition, or do we look at them as collaboration? I think that's another food for thought for all of us. I spoke about the talent, but I think it's also very important, to relook at the organizational structures. Today, when you look at a lot of these, tech startups, their organizational structures are very different than traditional organizations. And interestingly, I interacted with a few of them, a lot of them are much more focused on the customer. So in terms of, so sometimes, the traditional organization is built, that's a very manufacturer construct. We have departments. An underwriting department, frankly, has no meaning for the customer. We can think it's the most important, department from our perspective. So how do we kind of rethink of our organizational structure rather than just creating a digital vertical, which is on the left-hand side, which is without making any fundamental change. But how do we make digital thought process, empowerment, speed of decision-making, more as a part of, every department, and, become like, again, it's a cliched word, become a digital organization. So, and there, as I said earlier, we need to, the only answer to my mind is, to get very good digital native and data-savvy talent, to create, again, a lot of the consultants talk about these, create these very agile squads. But basically, whatever jargon, which we use, I think the idea is, how do we create a team which has got underwriters, technology, marketing, all of those people together who are empowered to take a decision. So they solve a customer problem. And not that, that the file again goes to the boss of the head underwriting, so it's, so then nothing changes. That's a very superficial change. I think that's something, again, I would say, which is very important. To what extent can we create a company within a company? So that's something, which again is food for thought for us. And can we create the, startup-like culture, which is, if you have to fail, we fail fast, and, again, we take this thing. And so traditional companies, like myself, we have got a lot of strengths, but can we, can we use those strengths, very powerfully? So we've got like the best underwriters, we've got, deep pockets, financial pockets, we've got the experience, we've got a lot of data. Can we use these areas, to convert them into advantages, in the digital world? That's really the question which I would, ask. And then, of course, I think, we've already spoken about products and ecosystem. Again, how do we think more from the customer's mindset? And we need to design products, which the customer likes. Whether again, travel insurance, to my mind, is my favorite example. Overseas medical insurance. So while every underwriter knows that probably 95% of the loss claim ratios, comes from medical illness in an emergency which happens outside India. But if you ask the customers, for the customers, the value of that is only 5%. And, for most of the customers, if you are able to help them in the loss of a passport, if they are in a South American country, or get the forex when their wallet gets stolen, or they lose their baggage, that's of much, much more value. So the customer, finally, we need to listen. The customer is, right, and we need to listen to the customers. If the customer wants to consume and, their products, his or her products, and their needs are different, so then we need to, as an industry, we need to move this thing. Again, when I look at it, historically, probably, when I used to, let's say, use taxi as a service, so maybe, every taxi, so do about, 24 trips in a year and maybe 1,000 rupees every, so total cost was 2,400 rupees. But today, 24,000 rupees, so today when you look at it, the same consumption, everybody consumes an Uber or an Ola, but the trip cost has become 100 rupees, but the number of trips from 24 has, maybe, become, maybe a 200 or 300 trips in the year. So I think, that's the way, we are looking. So there will be the ticket size of the products, will become much smaller, and the velocity, of transaction, so will become, much larger. So if somebody needs a high-end camera insurance for one day, who am I to, so insurance industry, somebody will come and meet that need. So as an insurance industry, if one company says, that it doesn't fit into our mindset, so I think the customer is always right, and we will need to, move on to that. And the other thing is, of course, there is a lot of ecosystem data which is available, and how can we use it intelligently to design products, to underwrite better? That's the other thought which I, want to leave with you. So those are, few of the thoughts, which I had. So, but fundamentally, I'll again end with the thought which I started. I think, it's the key is to understand the customer mindset and be very, very open to change our own mindset, as an organization, even if it means destroying parts of something, which we have created ourselves. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of the first session. I would now request my colleagues to present the dignitaries with a memento as a token of gratitude. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. I would now request Divishri and Himanshu to take over and commence the second session. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Let us now begin with the second session of event. I am Himanshu.
And I'm Divya.
The theme for this session is succeeding in the era of innovation. This will be followed by Q&A session.
With immense pleasure, we would now like to introduce our esteemed dignitaries for this session. Mr. Amit Nayak, CEO and co-founder, Metamorphosis Technologies. Mr. Vijay Kumar, CEO and Principal Officer, GoDigit.
May I now request you both to please come up on the stage and form the dais.
We now request our colleagues to formally welcome the panel with a floral bouquet.
We will be proceeding with the presentation. First up, we have Mr. Amit Nayak. Sir will be presenting on the topic Innovation through Technology, an InsurTech perspective. But before that, a brief introduction of Sir. Mr. Amit Nayak, CEO and co-founder of Metamorphosis Technologies, which is an InsurTech, brings with him an experience of 2 decades in the industry. Sir has a deep insurance expertise with focus on life, health, and general insurance. Mr. Nayak has a specialization in various domains, including new account development, C-level client relationship, analyst relationship, competitor analysis, and marketing. I request Sir to kindly begin with the presentation.
Good afternoon, everybody. I would like to thank Mr. Srinivasan and the entire NI team for giving me this privilege to be a part of this event and talk about innovation through technology and InsurTech's perspective. So, when I was thinking what I need to present, I realized that rather than going through the data and statistics that's already available on Google, why don't we give a perspective based on what we have been interacting with various insurance companies globally. Yeah. And we have talked a lot about InsurTech, connected ecosystems. I'll certainly cover a few of those in my presentation. But the key is we'll understand what is a foundation that an insurance company needs to have to be able to compete with this new age digital insurers. Yeah. So I wanted to start with a short video.
Mr. Burton, this is Insurable. We've
Yeah. So, so what you saw in the video, is it a dream or reality if you look at it? All of us want such kind of an experience, and it is becoming a reality. If you look at it, the crop insurance, home insurance, drones are at play, and one of the prospects we are working with, they are using the drone technology to do the surveys. And talking about the sensors, telematics, you can know exact location of the accident. And of course, a taxi can be dispatched to you, the towing truck can come there. But what is stopping the current incumbent insurance companies from achieving this? So before we talk about InsurTech, let's actually define who an InsurTech is. An InsurTech, as there are multiple ways to look at it. McKinsey has a definition for InsurTech. There are other companies which have defined InsurTech. But our view is an InsurTech is any technology vendor or the partners and ecosystems who can enable an existing insurance company to take that leap and become a digital insurer. So if you look at this slide, it's confusing, right? There are so many players in the market. So when an insurance company is evaluating some of these technology vendors, it's very, very difficult for them to evaluate what it is. How do we look at which are the technologies they need to invest in? And we believe that there is a certain process and method through which insurance companies can evaluate what technology is relevant to them. I'll share some of them today. So I think before we go into the technology part, let's understand what impact it has created on the industry. So if you look at it on the left side, we see that the maximum impact of InsurTech has been on the P&C industry or the general insurance industry, followed by the health. Within that, the maximum impact has been on the distribution side. Now, one of the reasons for this is that most of these InsurTechs have focused on low ticket products. They have focused on episodic insurance. They have focused on electronic items, shipping insurance, which are much, much easier to sell. And they have also focused on the life side, mainly on the pure risk, which is a term product. And on the right side, if you see, where has been the maximum impact on the growth side, they have been able to really leverage and cross-sell and upsell really well. So what is the reason for that? Because they have had a better customer experience. It might be through a superior service, it could be through a mobile-first approach, but they have had that leverage, and that's why they have been able to cross-sell and upsell. So we have seen that in InsurTech, there are multiple players, and an InsurTech need not be an insurance company which is taking a risk. InsurTech can be a technology vendor who helps with the ecosystem and partnerships to help an incumbent insurance company to become one of the InsurTechs. Yeah, so if you see the current landscape, we have the traditional insurers, and they have mainly focused on one product fits all approach. And the biggest challenge they face today is, and we have seen just now Nilesh was presenting, he talked about legacy policy admin platforms, the legacy infrastructure. This is one of the biggest hurdles for an insurance company to take that next step and compete with new age digital insurance companies. But if you think of it, some of these companies have operated for 40, 50, 80 years, and they are fearful of an InsurTech which has just come from 3 years back or 4 years back. What is the reason? They have so much of customer data. Why can't they analyze that and come out with certain products? There are multiple reasons for that, you know. If you look at a traditional insurance company, and I can give some examples from India and from outside. One of the insurance company we are currently working with, they have 6 policy administration platforms. And Nilesh was talking about it should not take more than a week to launch a product. But some of these companies are taking anywhere between 3 to 4 months to launch a product. And when you're talking about a partnership, let's say you want to partner with a Fitbit or a Goki or Car IQ, who are your ecosystem partners, they want the data or they want the product to be available immediately. They cannot wait for a 3 months, 6 months period. That is one of the biggest challenges insurance companies are facing. Whereas if you look at a new age company, because they have a mobile first approach, they are already on a cloud platform, and they already have certain lean and lightweight platforms available with them. So to compete with them, what we believe is in between this traditional insurance companies and the new age digital companies, there are a few insurtech technology vendors who can help you take that leap. And that leap can happen through something we know as a foundation layer, which I'll talk more about the next slide. But basically what they're going to do is they're going to help you to have a layer on top of this policy administration platform so that you can leverage the existing investments that have been made. People have spent millions of dollars on this policy administration platform. And when we analyze some of the data, what we realize is while these insurance companies are in the business of risk, but they're really, really fearful to take a risk with a startup technology vendor. That is the reality of the. So without disturbing the current policy admin platforms, we feel that the foundation layer can build an internal ecosystem which then can interact with an external ecosystem. Yeah? And mainly this ecosystem can tilt the balance in the favor of a traditional company because they have the biggest asset. They have the customer data, and then they can leverage some of these technologies to do dynamic pricing, and they can build a connected ecosystem of partners. So we have heard a lot about artificial intelligence and machine learning, and of course, if you look at any business, it's certainly going to impact it. And there are huge implications, and one side we have people who have predicted gloom and doom, and other side people who feel that AI ML can completely transform a business. And we certainly believe that AI ML is going to transform, and if you don't invest in these technologies, if you don't innovate, it's going to be very tough for an insurance company to exist. But before that, what is that foundation layer that I was talking about? So this is the foundation layer, and many of you will be surprised that why would an insurance company, if it's existed for 10, 15, or 30 years, need this kind of a foundation layer? Let me give you some examples. If you look at the first one, the product configurator, we believe this is the heart of any transformation. If you look at any partnership that's going to happen, whether it's with a wellness center, with a travel advisory, whether it's a telematics player or a connected car system, it's all going to happen with your ability to do dynamic pricing within your product. And if you're going to take 4 months or 6 months or 8 months to launch a product, it's not going to work out. So you need to invest and build a great product configurator. And there are many technology vendors who are providing this product. So you can take off-the-shelf product, customize it to your needs, but that is the first step. So let me give you an example. If you take a simple product like travel insurance, there are multiple benefits within that. It could be an hijack, it could be trip delay, it could be personal accident cover within that. And when we were talking to one of the insurance companies, they wanted to break these benefits and allow the customer to choose and create his own product. Now this may sound very simple, and for this they wanted to tie up with a lot of airline partners, they wanted to tie up with a few dealers, and the proposition that came out was it's going to take them internally around 8 months to be able to come out with this product. When we went there, we presented, and they implemented the product configurator. What we could do is unbundle all the benefits, and the premium pricing and rate tables were defined at a benefit level. So for each of this, there was a rate table rather than a common premium for all of these benefits. And whether it's an agent, it's a dealer, it's a travel agent, or the D2C customer, he's able to now choose, pick what he wants, what's best for him. And in today's age of on-demand kind of products, wherein if I'm taking a Ola or Uber, and I want to just insure myself for that specific trip, you're going to need the capability in the product configurator to be able to have an on-off switch. We can help you with such product innovation. Or it could be, we are now working with one of the insurance companies for a personal accident cover, and these are actually low premium products. They want the capability that if a person wants to switch it off for 4 months, he should be able to switch it off. So this is the kind of innovation that's happening, but it cannot happen with a strong foundation layer. And one of them is the product configurator, certainly. And if you look at it, we talked in the morning about a regulatory sandbox. If your product configurator cannot let you define a product which is for a certain segment, which is for a certain market, which is for a certain time period, you're going to be in trouble. You can't, probably will have, there are 50 applications that can come in, but your ability to define that product, come out of the market is going to take time. Also, we have been talking to some of the insurance companies. They're struggling with the regulatory changes on benefit illustration because there are certain commitments on a 4%, 8% rate. If these are the things that you're spending time on internally, your IT team, it's a challenge because the new age digital insurer is focused on the customer experience and it's going to beat you out. Yeah. So apart from the product configurator and the rating engine, the second thing is the customer acquisition. And I think we have talked a lot about this mobile first approach. But what is the most important thing here is a simplified process for buying insurance. If you're going to have 8 to 10 pages of form to be filled out, it's not going to work for this mobile savvy, the digital age insurer. So we need to have simple forms, and this is where the third part, the auto underwriting engine, which we have been talking about since morning, helps. And there are two aspects to it. One is underwriting that happens at an individual level rather than a group level. So what we are talking is not on the data that's actuarial data based on a group, but can I underwrite the case based on the specific merits of that particular individual? So it could be data from social media. Of course, there are regulatory challenges on that, but there is data available today. And within the insurance company, there is enough data available about that customer. We have seen that the same customer is existing in 5 policy administration platforms, and some of the insurance companies are not able to have a unified customer view for it. So this data itself is good enough for you to be able to underwrite and price it. Of course, other things like if the case is a complicated case, it's never going to be a straight-through process based on completely on rules. So if you look at a case which is like a 10 crore term plan or it's a unit-linked plan, it's going to require manual underwriting. But does the underwriter have an underwriting workbench which is giving him the power to have a look at his existing quotation, claims, the health data, MIB data? Can this be integrated with India Stack, which gives you data on the eKYC platforms? So this is very, very critical from an underwriting perspective. And that's where I think insurance companies need to spend their money on, an underwriting workbench. And finally, it's the moment of truth is when you're going to service the customer when a claim comes in. If his experience is you're going to make him fill up lengthy forms, the same questions are going to be asked, like what we saw when the accident happened. There is one insurance company which is completely digital. They sent out a Uber car to him. They sent out a towing truck, and the drone came and took the photographs, and the claim was auto-logged, whereas there is someone who's struggling with the IVR system on the phone. So I think claims is a very, very critical area. And we believe that, again, there needs to be an underwriting workbench, similar a claims workbench, which gives the claims adjudicator a complete view. And what is important is, can the data that was shared during the underwriting time be available to the claim adjudicator? Because this is the time he can analyze whether there's a possibility of a fraud that has happened. So how would this platform look like, right? You build the foundation layer. So on the left, you see there are multiple distribution channels. There could be agents, agencies, there is a D2C, there is banca, we have affinity channels, and of course there's a concept of a mall insurance. So if you look at it, all of these people, whether it's an agent or a customer of an, they expect a completely omnichannel experience. And when we talk about omnichannel, it has to run across the distribution channels, and also from a technology perspective, he expects it to work on an iOS device, it works on an Android device, he should be able to go home on his laptop or a Mac, he should be able to access the same data on a browser. So the data has to seamlessly flow from one platform to another platform. And once this foundation layer is ready, like I said, integrating this with a policy admin system and ensuring that the policy admin system just becomes a place where all these records are stored. You don't need to replace a policy admin platform. The servicing, the endorsements can still happen there, because all the innovation that we have seen is happening more on the product pricing, underwriting and claim side, and customer acquisition side. So let that investment that you have made, and there is a way to do this. You could start with simple products. You can take personal accident product, travel product, you can take up a motor insurance product, then gradually, if you're a life insurer, move first with term insurance product, take this whole thing as a proposition on the cloud and try out the term products. Yeah? But the most important thing is the ecosystem. And I think my previous presenter, Nilesh, was talking more about this, because very, very critical from a P&C perspective. Your ability to connect with open APIs on a microservices architecture. So apart from the 4 traditional channels, what we have seen, the bank assurance, agents, D2C and affinity, there are other players who can help you sell. We have seen there is one of the insurers who is betting on 100 in Asia Pacific, a Japanese insurer, 100 million just betting on the travel product. Again, if you can host these APIs, they are open APIs available to your dealers, to your point of sale aggregators, to brokers. It's going to be much, much, much easier to integrate and sell. And we certainly believe that this entire ecosystem requires the foundation layer to be there, the open APIs be there, and then you can partner with them. So it could be fitness devices, it could be wellness players. So we all heard of Ping An, which has the Chinese insurer, and we heard them today in the morning, where they have built a complete ecosystem around this. But if you look at some of the examples in Asia Pacific, Discovery, then AI Vitality, they have done an amazing job and ensuring this ecosystem. So they're tied up with gym memberships, the wellness, the fitness data, how many calories you have burned, and the whole pricing and premium is based on that data. Similarly, in India, we have had telematics providers who have implemented the usage-based insurance, and depending on the way you drive, how you drive, the entire pricing is happening. But for all of this to happen, the most critical thing is that the insurance company should be able to expose and get these APIs out in the market. Only then this is possible. Yeah. So I said AI/ML is certainly important, but we strongly feel while AI/ML in itself is a journey, it can only happen when this base foundation layer is in place. Once this is in place, so we are investing a lot of money now on this AI/ML platform, wherein based on the location, we are able to track which agent should contact whom. Then we are able to do the underwriting price based on this. There's a lot of fraud analytics that we have been able to do on the claims, the fraud propensity. So it's certainly possible, but you need to ensure that the basic foundation layer is absolutely ready. Then, of course, the customer segmentation, cross-sell, upsell, the predictive analytics, fraud analytics, your robo-advisor, RPA, all of this can come into the platform. Yeah, so in the end, you can accelerate the journey. It needs to start, like what I said, with first identifying a good insurtech. And the definition of insurtech, like I said, probably there are 2 categories. There are insurtechs who are themselves taking a risk and are underwriting the risk, and then they are partnering with insurance companies. But the challenge there is, are you ready to give out your data? Because we have seen cases where some of these insurtechs themselves have later become insurance companies. So are you ready to give out your data, which is the main thing which will help you compete with the digital insurance companies? Second thing is, do you want to ensure that you are giving out your most critical IT systems out to these vendors? or rather you want to build internally, so it's a build versus buy approach. But if there is an insurtech, a technology vendor who is not owning your data, his game is not a valuation game, but is willing to partner with you to help you with a IP and product culture, I think that's the right vendor for you. Once this is in place, of course, what we discussed is the 3 steps, which is building a foundation level, building a partner ecosystem, and finally applying the AI/ML thing. I think this is what I want to share rather than the data or statistics that's already available. So I'm open for any questions you have. Okay, sure.
Thank you, sir, for throwing light on the new technological impact on the industry. For our next presentation, I am honored to introduce Mr. Vijay Kumar, who is the CEO and Principal Officer of GoDigit, who will be presenting on the topic Digital Breakthrough, Impact on the Insurance Industry. But before that, a brief introduction of Sir. Throughout his career of nearly 2 decades, Sir has only worked with the startup companies in the auto and insurance sector like Kirloskar Tractors, Maruti Suzuki, Hyundai, and GoDigit. Sir had started his career with the automobile industry and later became a part of Bajaj Allianz, where Sir headed various functions including motor OD claims, motor third-party claims, and consumer legal cases. Sir, requesting you to please begin with the presentation.
Good afternoon, friends. Before I start, I would like to thank Mr. Srinivasan, Director NIA, the faculty members, NIA, and all the youngsters sitting here in the audience. Given the time, 15 minutes, I think I will like to be restricted myself to, so what exactly on the digital side has happened in the industry and how the industry is impacted. So I think generally I find a lot of criticism about the insurance, Indian general insurance industry, that the industry has not done anything or not doing enough for the customer or for itself. So I am a bit positive, and I want to start with on the positive note, saying that while globally I think a lot of innovations have happened, the Indian general insurance industry also has done a lot, and we are not very far from what others are doing. So the video which Amit showed just now, I think some of the examples we have in our industry as well, to catch up with all those best practices. Now on the digital evolution, obviously being part of the global family in India, I think obviously has also changed significantly and evolved on the digital front. So internet reaching every nook and corner of the country, I think 0.5 billion internet users in India. So we have ample scope to change the insurance scenario. The youngsters today are using apps. Some of them up to 24 apps per day actually. Maybe Ola, Uber, mails, etc. So I think the the internet enablers are there for us to exploit. So obviously, in insurance cannot stay away from these changes, and the Indian insurance industry also changing significantly. Um, Perhaps we have not reached to the level of the other technology companies like Amazon or maybe Ola, Uber, because of valid reasons. There are good reasons actually why um, uh, we haven't reached to that level. But I wouldn't say that the status is in any way we are less and progressing well in that direction. The change in the industry actually, if there is little impediments, the few reasons, because we have to carry the risk, which is taken into account all the the risk perception in our all the processes and systems. Um, the cost of investment in the technology side, which Amit mentioned just now, I think he has given a fair idea of how the technology, what kind of technology is available, but it comes at a very high cost. And for any general insurance, the margins are obviously limited, and particularly for new companies like us, who are startup companies, I think for them the investing so huge amount towards technology, I think is a challenge. The other reason I would also like to cite here is the regulatory